Welcome back to Reclaim Within. I am Ash, and today we are diving into how resistance keeps us stuck and how compassion can shift our energy and open the door to transformation. So this topic hits very close to home because last month I was in so much resistance, and I joke with a lot of my clients that I am the queen of resisting my resistance. So because I know it so well, I've traversed it so many times, I've had a lot of practice with this, which is why I wanted to share more about it this week, because every time I move through it, I feel like I understand the concept and I understand how to traverse it more and more. It's like I move through my resistance, and every time I have more maps that I come back with to have a deeper understanding of what's going on. But what I find, and what I found a lot last month, is that resistance actually is a very exhausting experience. It's more exhausting to resist what's currently happening and what is than to actually move through it. I just think that a lot of us didn't have a lot of modeling done for us younger in actually being able to witness someone move through their emotions in a very healthy way. And I had a lot of really wild and crazy experiences this last month that led me to actually being in a decently functional freeze. And I was aware that I was on that path of resisting my resistance. And then I remembered this beautiful quote that plays rent-free in my mind very often, and that I use a lot within my work with my clients, which is what you resist persists. And I invite you to reflect in this moment on any area where you have felt stuck or frustrated. A lot of times, feeling very stuck is my key, I guess, of the fact that I might be resisting feeling all of my feelings that are coming up for me in the moment. Often frustration is another really good one. If you're feeling frustrated or getting frustrated really easily, that can often mean that you're resisting or rejecting your current reality. And so the more energy that we actually pour into the resistance, the more entrenched we actually become in the exact experience that we are trying to avoid. So it's like getting stuck in quicksand, and instead of just relaxing, you fight against it, right? Or maybe a better example of that is like the ocean, right? You're supposed to just relax. If you get in the tidal wave or in a current, you're supposed to just let it take you back to shore because it'll move that way. You're not supposed to swim against the current. But that's strangely very not instinctual. I think for a lot of us, I really don't feel like I'm alone in this because I've worked with a lot of different clients on their own getting stuck or their own frustration. And they're like, I do not know why I feel so stuck, or I don't know why I just keep getting so frustrated. And they don't have the courage or the capacity to move through it. And so this resistance actually just ends up creating so much tension in our bodies, but also mentally. It anchors us deeper and deeper and deeper into frustration, exhaustion. I was feeling rather hopeless a couple weeks ago when I was moving through a lot of really unknown, scary health experiences. And, we don't often even recognize when we're resisting. I think that's the hardest part. What often happens is that it can come off like a mood, like we're just moody. It often comes off as a projection. So you'll sit down with someone that you really care about and you'll be like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong with you? And they're like, yeah, I'm doing great. There's nothing wrong with me. And you're like, you sure? Are you sure you're okay? And they're like, yeah, I'm sure I'm okay. But really, it's actually you that's not okay, but you're putting it out there like it's them. And so that's a very common one that I see, especially with our dear, dear closest friends and spouses. It happens a lot. Another great sign that you might be resisting something is that you might have a really short temper. So you might get really short with the people around you, or really short at work. And that's usually a sign that we're resisting something. So the key realization is resistance to what was happening for me was actually only deepening my struggle. And I've been here before. This is actually a pattern that I've gone through many, many times. I am really here to learn this one this lifetime. But what ended up happening is I had a little bit of help. I have a really beautiful husband, and I had some really great friends and coaches that really assisted me in actually being able to have compassion for what I was going through, to be able to just allow myself to have my emotional experience. One of the key things is to validate my feelings. A lot of times we want someone else to validate our feelings, but it actually feels even more amazing when we can validate it for ourselves, because it's almost like we're doubling down on, this is my experience that I'm having. And I don't know, it feels really good. And I just allowed myself to bring more compassion to myself and everything that I was moving through. And it just allowed me to feel acceptance and dive really deep into surrender. I kept playing the song Into the Unknown by Aurora, and it was really helping me just stop fighting against all the unknown that was happening and just let it be. So resistance is the mental and emotional energy that we use to push against what we don't want, leading to tension, frustration, and exhaustion. So the metaphor is pushing back a river or swimming against the current. So it only actually exhausts us while the current continues to flow. It's almost like, why push against it? Just let it be. That's easier said than done. And so the consequences of resistance is that it actually anchors us in to the very experience that we're trying to escape. It's blinding us to the lessons and opportunities that we will eventually get to if we can just get to the other side. So what I mean by that is, if we could just allow ourselves to have compassion for what we're moving through and how difficult it might be for us, then eventually on the other side, there's a lot of opportunity for us to get to deepen into a lot of understanding and opportunities. Finding that compassion for ourselves, or having other people who can help us have compassion for ourselves. That's what I do with a lot of my clients. It really helps to have someone else help us in softening our resistance, creating more space for acceptance. And then we can get really curious about what is actually happening here. And how do I actually then approach this and figure out, like, what do I need? Usually underneath our resistance and underneath the struggle is so many unmet needs or desires, or just these young parts of us that want to be seen, loved, cared for. And acceptance or surrender into this space, it doesn't mean agreeing with or liking the situation that you're in. It just means acknowledging it without judgment. This is a really, really beautiful thing to practice also if you're in partnership with someone else. Instead of coming up and resisting how they're operating in their day-to-day life, or the way that they're handling situations with the kids, or with, I don't know, anything really, how do you actually, instead of judge them or need them to be different or resist the way that they're operating, how do you actually lead with curiosity there too? Lead with surrender and acceptance. I think a lot of times our resistance can come out at those that we love the most, and we make ourselves right and we project on them that they're wrong, and we resist how they do things. I see that a lot in my client work. And practicing acceptance and surrender, it doesn't mean you have to like it, how they operate, or agree with it, but accept that whatever they're moving through, that there's a reason. There's a reason why they're operating the way they are. And I think that when we practice it with our partners or with the people that we love the most, it helps us then practice it with ourselves, because honestly, it takes a lot of practice. And the more we practice it, the better we get at it. So whenever you notice yourself in a mood, projecting, or short-tempered, or just you feel the resistance coming up, stop and see if you can just ask yourself, what am I resisting right now? What is persisting right now? It might be another good question. So name then what you're feeling. So the really, really important step in this is, once you acknowledge that you're resisting, or maybe you haven't acknowledged that you're resisting, but maybe you can acknowledge that something's persisting. The second step in that is then to validate your feelings. And it might feel silly at first, but oh my gosh, it's been so helpful for me. So the other week, I kept validating, I am sad. I am sad. And I would just say it over and over to myself. And it allowed for me to find reassurance that this is true. This is happening. I am sad, and it's okay. Right? And that okayness actually allows for you to bring the compassion in. And so another way that I like to share this with people is maybe imagine how you would comfort a friend going through the same thing that you're going through. Would you tell that friend that they need to figure it out, they need to get it together, what's wrong with them? Maybe, depending on the topic. But if you actually were going to console someone with compassion, 8 times out of 10, maybe 9 times out of 10, you would actually offer that person care. Like, I'm so sorry for what you're feeling right now. Again, it doesn't mean you have to agree with the situation, but you can actually validate the experience. You can even ask a question that can lead to curiosity, and lead to more grace. So how can I move through this with grace? Or is there a way that I can learn from what's going on right now? Or how can I have gratitude for everything this has taught me? And so the power really is in those small shifts. And so even a small moment of validation or a small moment of compassion can create ripple effects in the way that you orient with yourself and with those that you love. So you can use this exact formula for your friends, for your partners, for your kids, for your parents. Number 1, pause and notice what is going on right now. What's persisting? What's resisting? Step 2, validate the feelings. Just validate what is. Doesn't have to be okay, doesn't have to be right. Just validate what it is that's going on in that moment. 3, bring compassion like you would for your best friend, the person you love the most, and then ask a compassionate question. Get curious with compassion, and that will lead to really big shifts. I feel so grateful to be able to come on the other side of what I was resisting, because it was keeping me so stuck. But allowing the compassion has allowed me to move forward, which is why I wanted to bring this up, because it's going to happen again. I'm going to resist again. But the more that I bring curiosity and kindness and be able to validate my experience, the easier it'll get every single time. So the next time you find yourself or someone else resisting, you can practice pausing, validating, offering compassion, and you can watch how much that can shift in the moment. So yes, what you resist does persist. However, what you accept with compassion can transform. Thank you so much for joining. I really hope that if you enjoyed this episode, you share it with a friend or you leave a comment. I really love reading your comments. I really love the feedback. It helps me feel like I'm not sharing this out with this interesting internet void place. I'm so used to working in person with people that sharing in this way has been a really interesting, beautiful surrender experience for me. And if you are actually interested in working with me in one-on-one, in person, or virtually, I actually have 3 offers to work together. So if you know me, you know that I've been very boots on the ground and working and hosting retreats all over the US, helping teach people how to create and how to learn from their own emotional matrix and their own histories and how they experience life, and help them create what they want through something that's called the creation methodology. And so I've been working with people one-on-one, in person, and in these retreat settings. And I was traveling like 2-3 weekends every single month. And I've come into a phase of my life where I have a deep desire to just be a bit more grounded. So I've shifted my offerings and I still host retreats. So obviously I'd love to have you there. If you want to know more, just contact me. But I've shifted my offerings to be able to be more intimate with people and work closer with people virtually. So you can either join my Reclaim Within Circle, which is going to be a very small and virtually held group. Between 4 and 8 people is what I'm hoping to have in those spaces. And this Reclaim Within Circle is where I'm going to be teaching mystery school topics that are so sacred to me that I won't share them publicly. And you can join a group of weavers in coming together and remembering the sacredness of being human. We are going to be able to give each other open feedback. I am going to be able to work individually with people in that group setting and whatever is coming up for them on a week-to-week basis. And then I'll be teaching these sacred mystery school topics that I feel like have completely helped transform the way that I interact with my whole world. And I'm excited to get to share that and pass it on. So registration for that is going to be ending sometime in February, I think early February. The second way to work with me is you can join the Build Your Own Inner Kingdom workshop. I have completely revamped and added to my original creation methodology course. So I was doing an 8-week-long course where I taught 19 topics on how to create a life that feels really fulfilling from the inside out. But I've shifted things and I am now teaching 22 concepts that are necessary to be able to help you build your inner kingdom, to allow you to step into transformation and have very real tools and maps that you can lean on, rely on, go back to over and over so that you can actually shift and build your consciousness in a way that feels really honoring and fulfilling and respectful of yourself and everybody around you. And so registration for that will end early February. And then last but not least, I have just 5 spots available to work with me in an intimate 3-month container to co-create very real transformation. And this is offered virtually and privately, either as an individual or as a couple on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. If you want more information on any of those, you can email me at reclaimwithin@gmail.com, or you can come on over to Substack and message me over there. I really appreciate you spending your time with me today. I am so honored to be on this sacred journey with you, this human experience that we're all having. Until next week, have a good one.